sat in the bowels of a cave. It was dark. He daydreamed about his scheme to escape his cave without a cape. This is hell, he thought. I've fought fights to eradicate the night, and I've brought light to castigate the night, and I've taught millions. Knowing that someday I'll just be known as some inanimate animation fabricated in BC, comically dreamed up in imaginations just so they can see and imagine a hero that's always ready to abdicate and activate an adequate amount of sight so light can fight the night and they can be free to see. But me? Just a tool used to screw the foolish into believing that after this life there won't be a need for a Justice League. But a true hero knows that like the civil rights movement in the 60s, the bright light ain't always right and the righteousness lies in the darkest degrees, so he stayed. He prayed for days, contemplating ways to escape in a 3-day daze, dazed off into his own world and not focus on the one he found himself in. Friends that he kissed were the ones that betrayed. Some were even robbing him while Robin was his only aid. And dismayed as he may be, he had already passed the feat that he knew with his daddy would have had to agree to disagree. Despite his pleas and, "Father, don't make me drink this, please," he had to see this and drink it like tea with no honey. And as he grasped his nose and the wine went down, he never whined to his kind or let his smile turn down. He had to stay turned up, knowing that if Adam died from a tree, then he had to endure the exact same thing. He had to save the world by fulfilling his word without any powers or a ring, and then he fell asleep. As he slept, he dreamt about the role that he had to accept. He kept tossing and turning, learning about the sins for his people that he had to intercept. He wept. He was woken in pain, sprained and broken, beaten to the brink of death, left with a little lining of silver, a sliver of life. He had to go up and was hung up with his arms stretched, not for his own wrongdoing, but for the healing of his people. His back had to be erect. He's the elect, self-elected to be neglected and not respected for others' crimes. And now this symbol of stretched wings will be remembered for all time, shining across the sky, a symbol of his life, this Christ-like figure eternally acknowledged for sacrifice. He was left hanging until he could stand. Like a canvas, he was branded with bruises and was commanded to be left stranded. This is the hand that he himself had asked to be handed. It was a hand that he demanded. Playing solitaire and solitary alone until he could single-handedly land on his feet. He couldn't save his people until he found himself in defeat. Again, he fell asleep. The next day he awoke and he waited like Alfred. And he began to journey in his mind to the day that he got severed from his father, who was in heaven. Because from youth, he had grown up without his true parent, but the glory of his wealth continued because it was inherent. So he was raised by someone else who was close to his daddy but could never quite experience the fierce sadness of being in that alley. He felt responsible. So responding to the rage and taking on the turmoil, he saved mankind by representing their darkness just to bring out of it some light. He understood how they felt having dealt without his father for all those years in the night. So he accepted his role and he put on his head some spikes and he decided to live life as the hero in the night. Having thought about his purpose, he got up on day 3 to take the keys and jump to freedom, stealing death from the enemy. And that day he returned, and when he came, the whole world cried because finally the man behind the mask had rised. And he bailed Christians and all from the bondage and blasphemy of Bane. The world was free from jokers and ghouls and villains that are insane. And he retired his mantle and passed it on to all of his disciples. Greater works will you do. That's the role that we're entitled. This storyline from sin and suffering to resurrection and redemption resembles remembrance to the symbol and not the individual. It's simple. Weeping may have endured for this dark night, but joy came in his morning. His disguise, compromise, and put to demise for us guys. This implies eternal life is more than just being baptized. What greater love than this? For a man to lay down his life Our joy returned in the morning because the sun had finally rise. So, rise.